It's football, basketball, baseball, swimming, wrestling. If you're a CU Buffs fan, you're going to want to stick around for this. We're talking to author Brian Howell. He's written a new book called 100 Things Colorado Fans Need to Know Before They Die. Good morning, Brian. Thanks so much for being here with us. This is a pretty cool book. First of all, how did you come up with this idea to do a book like this?
Well, the publisher's actually done this for several different teams, and I wrote one on the Broncos a few years ago, and so they had me do the Buffs this time around. So same basic format, but obviously different topics, much different topics for the Buffs than Broncos.
What's the number one thing, if I can only read one thing in here, what's the number one fact I need to know?
Well, I think one of the more interesting things is Byron Whizzer White. He was a guy in the 1920s that one of 5 Rhodes Scholars among CU football players, Supreme Court Justice for 30 years. So yeah, I think that chapter is very interesting. He had an interesting life.
And a lot of people probably wouldn't know something like that. They just know him as the athlete,
right,
and that sort of thing. So what is your favorite part about doing research for something like this?
I just love history. I love looking up the stuff from the 20s and 30s and things like that aren't readily available. There was a lot of digging that had to be done, but it was fun finding those things. And obviously going back and, for me, reminiscing on some of the interviews I've done with athletes over the years, just kind of pulling back from those and using some of those quotes as well. So a lot of trips down memory lane on this one.
Now, a lot of people know about Buffs football, basketball, things like that. What would you say is the most unique sport that you were able to research for this book?
I think it might be wrestling because it's not one that you think of on the college landscape really here so much. And there's some interesting wrestling history, including a former football player. This is not CU wrestling, but he went on to become a pro wrestler and wrestled Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Savage, all those guys. So wrestling has a unique part of this book as well.
That's pretty cool. Now, quick before we let you go, it is Broncos game day, so give us a fun Broncos fact that we can learn from your book.
Philip Lindsay. He was a Buff just a few years ago, and he is featured in this book, and a great Buff a few years ago. He's been a great Bronco.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We look forward to reading this, finding out all this CU Buffs factoids, so that way we can have a good conversation about the Buffs next time you're here.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. New surveillance.